Topo Athletic is committed to lifelong health and better movement. Topo builds running shoes for those who get out there every day regardless of weather, speed, energy, or mood. Their distinctive fit and feel combines instinctive human movement with modern performance and lightweight comfort to help you keep going, keep trying, and keep moving. Discover the Topo difference and step into a run experience unlike any other.
Hey everybody, welcome to the 118th episode of Fireside Chat on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network that you can get not only through the runtrimag.com website, but also on our YouTube channel, on video, and then via audio over on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and YouTube Music. Today we have a very special guest. Joining me today will be Eugene Day, who is an ultra runner and triathlete, as well as an engineer, scientist, pianist, cook, and baker. We're going to talk about sourdough bread, people, my favorite topic. Who is training for his first 200 miler at the Go Beyond Racing Oregon 200, which will be taking place in exactly 1 month from today. So I'm excited to talk to Eugene about his process leading up to that race, including a tune-up race at Mount Hood most recently. So without further ado, let's bring Eugene on to the show. Hey, Eugene, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Jason?
I am fantastic. We just chatted in the green room about a whole host of different things. And one of the first things I want to mention is that a week from yesterday, so July 29th, Eugene will be turning 50 years old. So happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you saying so.
Absolutely. By the way, Eugene and I also have a couple of other things in common, which is besides being ultra runners, we obviously love sourdough bread. I used to live in Seattle and Eugene lives there. So let's just jump right into this. One of the things that we ask everybody as an icebreaker, Eugene, is pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
Absolutely not.
Yes.
So this actually goes to something my college roommate and I used to say that like the ultimate example of non-differentiable pizzas, they're discontinuous, is pineapple and pizza tastes like you're having pineapple and pizza at the same time and they're not mixing, versus pepperoni pizza where it's all one unified flavor of a pepperoni pizza, right? And so I love pineapple. I love cheese pizza. You put pineapple on a pizza, and you're just cramming two different foods in your mouth at the same time. It doesn't work.
I love it. And that is by far the best answer I've heard as to why you should never do such a thing as put pineapple on pizza. Thank you so much for that in-depth response. Well, let's just keep on the food train. I want to talk sourdough. For anybody who is following Eugene, or if you're not following Eugene, go to his Instagram account. 2 of his last 3 posts are just loaves of sourdough bread. So let's talk about this. Is this a hobby that was launched because of the pandemic, or have you been making sourdough bread as long as you can remember?
So I would say it was relaunched in the pandemic. I used to do a little bit of sourdough when I was a bit younger. I was never very good at it. I do everything sort of ad hoc, right? I used to try to keep a starter in the back of my fridge, and I made a few loaves and they were sort of flat and dense and I kind of gave up on it. And then when the pandemic rolled around, like every other person in America, I think the pandemic had the result of, it was as if the entire America took about 2 billion credit hours of home economics, right? And so we did a couple of things to kind of produce food at home. I'm also someone who suffers from a lot of anxiety, and so at the very beginning of the pandemic, I was worried that food supplies chains might break down, right? Like I wasn't worried about there not being enough food, but I was worried about their people's ability to distribute it in ways that would get it to everybody, right? And so not that I was thinking that people were going to be starving, but that there may be disruptions to availability of items on a regular basis, right? So one of the other things we did, we started the sourdough starter and we got a couple of backyard chickens. And I figured, chickens are great because they turn garbage into protein. And so, we really started doing a lot of like home baking with and with just 2 eggs, 2 chickens. we were getting a dozen eggs a week. And I love eggs, but I don't eat that many eggs. And so we had to figure out all these new ways to use them. And baking is a great way to use and preserve eggs, which are otherwise pretty hard to preserve, right?
Yep.
So yeah, so I would say, yeah, relaunched in the pandemic. Um, and we have been running it pretty consistently ever since.
So you're training for the Oregon 200, which means you're out there running a boatload. Recovery meals must come into play. What's your favorite way to use some of the sourdough bread that you're making when it comes to recovery, or even pre-workout for that matter?
So, I mean, the one of the great things about sourdough, of course, is that in order to make sure that your starter lasts, you have to feed it and cast off all the time, right? So you always have like this extra bucket in the fridge, which is full of very, very sour kind of glop. It's what's called a SCOBY, a symbiotic community of bacteria and yeast. Um, and we make our sourdough starter with whole wheat, so it's whole wheat that's been percolating in there. Um, and I use that to make pancakes. I use it to make flatbread and pizza crusts. I use it in cornbread and quick breads and all kinds of things. And it's really it's very nutritious. Fermented foods give you all kinds of they make certain vitamins much more bioavailable, right? And I'm not like a big nutrition. I'm neither a big nutrition geek nor a conspiratorial nutritionist, right? Where there's
Okay.
a lot of people like, oh, don't eat this because it's bad for you, or do eat this because it's good for you. But like, it is well established, settled science that fermented foods provide you with micronutrients that are not necessarily available in other ways. Like, if you want vitamin B12, you either have to eat meat, supplement, or you can just eat pickled vegetables, right?
Yeah.
And pickled vegetables will have it that regular fresh vegetables don't. And so I do a lot of fermenting at home just because I like it. I enjoy it. I love fermented flavors, and the foods are really, really nutritious.
So for all you plant-based athletes or vegan athletes who are concerned about vitamin B12, Eugene just gave you the secret to getting more of it into
I
your.
mean, it is a source. I don't think it's a super good source. Like, don't stop supplementation just because you
Right.
start eating pickles, right? Talk to your nutritionist, talk to your doctor. But like, well-made homemade kimchi has vitamin B12 in it. The homemade pickles have vitamin B12 in it. Yeah.
Awesome. So you just recently finished the Mount Hood 50. Congratulations. I presume that's a tune-up for Oregon 200, which, like I mentioned in the intro, is exactly 1 month from today and starting.
Yes.
Where are you mentally when it comes to getting ready for your first 200-mile race?
That's a great question. You know, I really think that ultra running fundamentally is a mental sport. Um, there is a baseline level of fitness that you need to achieve and maintain, of course, no question, right? This is not something that that you can get up off the couch and do if you're not a runner. But I also you to run a 200-mile race. Now this will be my first 200, so I don't know for sure, but I have run 100. I've done an Ironman. I've done many 50Ks and 3 or 4 50-milers. I've done 100K. Um, I firmly believe if you can run a marathon and feel pretty good the next day, you can basically run any distance. Um, and so, um, that's what I mean by it being a mental sport. Like, once you've got your baseline physical fitness to where you need it to be, I really believe that beyond that, it's just about convincing your mind and figuring out how to fuel yourself, right? Um, and hydrate yourself so that you can keep going. So where am I mentally? I feel like I just kind of have this attitude that um, it's okay to be nervous, it's okay to be scared, um, it's okay to not know how it's going to go or what's going to happen. Um, and at the same time, like, I know about myself that I'm the kind of person who um, You know, my only athletic skill is the ability to be in a lot of pain for a long time. Um, I can't juggle. I can't shoot a basketball. I can't throw a football straight. I can't field a grounder, but I can keep going no matter how bad it hurts for a very long time. And this will definitely challenge that, right? But what comes down to it for me is, mentally, where's my head at? I know it's going to hurt. It's going
Yeah.
to hurt for a long time. And okay, so I just get ready for it to hurt for a long time. And hopefully it doesn't hurt as much as I'm afraid it will. And then I'll have a good day.
Yeah, like I did the original Cocodona, and day one was horrendous, as most people who were following it.
I've heard that about Cocodona.
Yeah, the first day is horrendous. And to your point, like you just mentally have to be prepared. Long days, you're going to be moving constantly and everything else. For me, the hardest day turned out to be the last 50 miles.
Yeah.
I got up from my 3-hour nap in the van, and I looked at my crew chief, Maria Simone, and I just said to her, I don't want to do this shit anymore. Like, I'm fucking tired.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. And she was like, look, it sounds absurd, right? To say you've only got 50 miles to go. Just one foot in front of the other. You have plenty of time. Don't worry about it. You'll get there. And so to your point, right, I think that if you can run a marathon and feel good the next day, you can do longer distances. You just have to train the muscle that lies 6 inches between your ears to understand that you're going to, for me, it was essentially almost came out to 50 miles a day, right? 50 miles a day, 50 miles a day.
And that's what this one has to be, right? So Oregon, they give you 100 hours to go 200 miles. So you have to go basically 50 miles a day. It's just over 4 days.
Mm-hmm. Have you started to plot out nutrition, hydration, aid station type of things, or are you still waiting to do that as you get closer to race day?
I don't do any of that shit.
Okay.
So I have my coach is going to come and be my crew chief. And so she is making me do a little bit of that. And my wife is she's professionally a high level project manager at this point. Her background is she has a PhD in biochemistry, but she's a project manager, and so she is definitely doing some of that. But when you talk about super long distance ultra running, maybe it doesn't have to be, but for me, this is a team sport, right?
Yeah.
And all I am is the piece of meat that's doing the whole distance.
That's right.
And other people are going to tell me the things that I have to know. And so I remember when I did my 100 miler, I did, and it's actually coming up in a week and a half now, is the Hamster Endurance Runs up in Bellingham, Washington. Which is one of the most amazing events in the world. If you are thinking about getting into ultra running, that would be a great place to do it. But it is. I did a 32-hour race, it's just loops around Lake Patton, and each loop is 2.6 miles,
Oof.
and has about 150 feet of gain, and it's on a non-technical gravel track, and and so I just went around the loop, and you have to do 39 times to get 100 miles. And I did that in just under 30 hours. But I remember times where, I'm at loop 34 or something like that, and I've been going for 22 hours or more. And, my wife says, what do you want to eat? And I'm like, I don't know. Nothing sounds good. I don't want anything. And she says, if I put food in your hand, will you eat it? And I'm like, yes, do that, whatever. And she got I think it was an avocado and cheese quesadilla or whatever. And it went down and it was fine. And I'm fortunate that I may not want to eat, but I don't get sick, right?
Okay.
I've never thrown up. I felt queasy a couple of times, but I've never had real GI problems. And so, yeah, I kind of have an iron stomach. I just, same race late in the middle of the night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, as I'm passing the aid station, and the race director says, Gene, what can I get you? And I just said, I want hydrocarbons that I can turn into carbon dioxide, right? That's it. I need fuel that I can set on fire. And that's how I do it. What do I love? I can go a long way on potato chips and Coca-Cola.
There you go. That is the top of the menu for many ultra runners. Potato chips and Coca-Cola. It's hard
Coca-Cola,
to go.
is a magic elixir that fuels impossible dreams. Um, I never understood life in motion until I started drinking Coca-Cola during races.
It's so true. You mentioned impossible, and it made me think when I was at Cocodona. You said you normally don't have like a desire for anything specific. When I was at Cocodona going into Prescott, I had told my team, I'm like, I want Impossible Burgers and Klondike bars when I get to Prescott. And eating those things, it was like the shot in the arm to get going.
Yeah.
But it was also accompanied by a can of Coke
Yeah.
to keep moving. I mean, it's unbelievable how well that stuff works for getting an ultra runner going. What made you decide that you wanted to do a 200? Was it one of those things where you were like, I've done an Ironman, I've done a 100-miler, it's next in progression? Or was it more of, I want to test myself, whether you had done the other things or not?
So this has a couple of different aspects to it. So part of me wants to just answer the way I heard Courtney DeWalter answer it once, right? When she was talking about going longer and longer. And she did her first marathon and she said, well, that didn't kill me. What's next? Right. And that is a lot like kind of that, like she put into words something that had been sort of nebulous in my head about that. And that's kind of it, right? I want to take on the 200 miler for a couple of reasons. One, I want to take this 200 miler on for a couple of very specific reasons. First of all, Go Beyond Racing is amazing. And I could talk all day about the races that I've done with them. But if you're a West Coast runner and you want like a small, incredibly well-run racing company that puts on fabulous, fabulous events, takes it seriously but has fun doing it, and does what they need. Like I have been with them both on the volunteering side of things and on the running side of things a number of times now, and I cannot say enough good things about this company. They are staggeringly good at this job, and so I wanted to do theirs when they took on the 200 distance, and this is the second year of this event. I wanted to do a trail 200 miler because I'm afraid of the dark. I'm just terrified of the dark, and that's something that I want to explore, right? Like, you know, I don't like to let my fears control my behavior. And so I just figure this is going to be big and scary. You know, I'm afraid of animals out there. I'm afraid of getting lost out there. I'm afraid of forest fires. Like that's a big one that I'm scared of right now. And so I'm just going to go out and I'm going to, trust my crew and the race director to keep me safe. And I'm going to trust my body to keep going. And I'm going to trust my bear spray if I need it. and that's where I'm going to go. Yeah, I think I really wanted to, I've done 100 miles. I've done this. I've watched my wife do a trail 100 miler. She did the Oregon Cascades with another great organization. I think they're Aspire Running, maybe Alpine. I wish I could remember. But anyway, and I just want that. I want to see what I can do. Right.
It's a big shout out to Renee and Todd over at Go Beyond Racing. We've had them on our show before. Ohm, who is one of our co-owners, did the Oregon 200 last year himself. And, we can't sing the praises of them any more than we could possibly have oxygen in our lungs, because they do put on a good race. And they're an inclusion-based company as well. And Trail Mix is also a part of who they are and what they do. And so it's just awesome that they're doing what they do to get more and more people involved in the sport. And I will say this for you, man, like I appreciate the fact that you're looking at your fear and instead of running away from it, you're running towards it. That's really commendable. And I don't know how often people will look at a fear and say, I'm going to go do something as big as a 200-mile race to tackle that fear, right? You could do a 50-mile race that might start at night and deal with it from that perspective, but you're choosing to do an event that is essentially 4 days and 4 hours long to tackle the 200-miler.
Yeah.
When you're out there and I'm wondering, what are your tips, tricks for yourself that you're going to be using to keep you moving? Again, you've done an Ironman, you've raced 50 milers, you've raced all sorts of different distances. You've got to have a bag of tricks. What do you think you're going to be using when you're out there?
Bag of tricks. Maybe I do. I I guess I just have this kind of sensation that like once I start, I want to get to where I'm done, right? Um, I definitely, so I feel like there are sort of four food groups to the ultra runner: um, food, water, salt, music.
Okay.
Um, and so, like that's what I tell myself is like I am not allowed to quit unless I have tried all four of those things over the course of a decent amount of time, right? Um, and because any lacking any one of those, I think, and music is really more of like a performance enhancing drug for me,
Okay.
rather than a sustaining drug, the way food, water, and salt are. Um, but you know, if you're low on calories, if you're low on salt, if you're low on liquids, you can feel like you just start making bad decisions, right? And so I need to make sure that, if I'm going to, and I believe failure is an option, right? I'm not one of these people who's just like, I'm going to go and I'm never going to quit and I'm never going to, like, right? Like, I think that makes the mindset brittle, rather than resilient. Um, so I think that, I just need to get myself into the situation where if I really do come up against something that I can't do and that I need to drop or for whatever reason, if I'm injured, if I'm, whatever it is, that I'm doing so making a good decision, not a bad one, right? And so there's the food, water, salt, music, and then I do have a lot of mantras that I go through as I run. I kind of start with like, you know, the first sort of, I didn't need to do any of this for the whole 50 miler that I was in really 10 days ago. But generally speaking, like after I've been running for about 20 miles, I start to have to go, there is no pain, right? Like there is no pain. There is no pain. And then after a while, that kind of stops working. Um, and so then I kind of shift into pain is not real. And what that means is, yes, I'm hurting, but it's not real. I'm not injured, right? I'm just tired and sore. Um, Pain is not real. Like if this is not pain that is informing me of damage to my body, right? This is pain that is telling me I'm tired and I want to quit. Um, and then eventually that will stop working, and I just start saying I love the pain. Um, and Um, and then every once in a while that will stop working and I have to say, I am the pain, and so, I have that keeps going. I remember like the whole marathon of my Ironman, I just kept saying, this is fine. This is fine. Everything is fine. That's Courtney DeWalter again, right?
Yep.
This is fine. Everything is fine. You're fine. Keep going. You're fine. Um, and, and so I have those things that are just kind of in my bag as I go, and then like music really helps, right? I listen to cheesy music. I will sing out loud, listening to headphones as I run on the trails. Like I will cry listening to music as I run on the trails, and I really like that.
Man, I love it. Like I don't listen to music, as anybody who has followed our account knows. I have a total of 2 songs on my phone, yet somehow I have hooks of songs from the 80s and 90s in my head, which is probably when I was listening to music more often, and can belt those out. And singing at the top of your lungs while you're going through these things is like a magical elixir, like Coke as well.
Hmm.
I wanted to ask you, when did you start participating in endurance sports? At what age?
Um, I ran my first half marathon. I think I was 39.
Okay, so go back to Eugene at age 38.
Okay.
And this idea of doing these things and pain is not real and your legs will be fine. Like, Could you imagine thinking that, what amounts to 12 years ago at this point?
No. So I started running at all when I was about 35. I had gotten divorced, and I knew I wanted to date again. And so I thought, oh, let's see if I can get into a little bit better shape, right? And so that's how I started running, and I was in terrible shape. Um, so I just started like, maybe one day I'll be able to run a mile, and I started like jogging, and I didn't realize it. I was kind of embarrassed at the time that, like, oh, I can only jog for 3 blocks, and then I have to walk for a block, and then I can jog for 3 blocks and walk for a block. And now I realize that I was doing interval training, right? and, so I started that, and then after I met my wife, and she's kind of always been into fitness at least a little bit throughout her life, um, and uh, and we started running together, and we had a bunch of friends that were runners that were more accomplished than I was, including a couple of Australian friends who had done, I mean, triathlon is like the national sport in
Correct.
Australia, and had done a bunch of triathlons, and so. Um, it was my idea. I was like, well, hey, why don't we all get together? Like, a bunch of us live on the Eastern Seaboard. Why don't we all meet in Pittsburgh and do the half marathon? Um, and so that's what we did. We went to Pittsburgh, we did the half marathon. And at the end of the race, I was like, all right, did that, checked it off the bucket list. I'm done now. And 2 weeks later, I was talking to my wife, and I was like, we should sign up for another race. And I've just kind of been hooked ever since.
This is why I love having these conversations. And it's one of the things that when I started this business, I didn't realize the enjoyment I would get out of conversations like this and the connections. So first of all, you and I in the green room, we talked about a lot of commonalities, right? So we talked about living in Seattle. We talked about obviously being ultra runners and Ironman finishers. We talked about being 50 years old. You turned 50 on the 29th of July, and I turned 50 last December. We talked about sobriety, and now you mentioned being divorced, and I've been divorced myself too. And then going back to a week ago today, we talked to Rebecca Keat, who is Australian and is a triathlete and a world champion at that nonetheless. And so you talk about, that being the triathlon being the national sport. It's just so funny how some of these things come full circle
Mm-hmm.
back to everything. I do want to dive into this a little bit with the idea of sobriety.
Okay.
We have a lot of ultra runners and endurance athletes in general that we talk to, and sobriety is a topic that comes up a lot. And oftentimes people will say that they've swapped one addiction for another, basically, right? I quit drinking and now I go run for hours on end. For you, one, how long have you been sober, and how do you think it's played a role in you being an athlete to be able to tackle the Ironman distance and then the 100-mile distance and soon the 200-mile distance?
Okay, so how long have I been sober? I've been sober for just about 16 and a half years. So February 16th, 2008, which means that literally just a few days ago, I passed 6,000 days sober. And did I swap one addiction for another? Personally, I don't like using the term addiction for things like running, for things that aren't chemical addictions. I think that they are fundamentally different in important ways. That said, if somebody else connects that way, like I'm not telling other people they shouldn't use it. For me, like, that's not how I think about it. The way that I respond to running is utterly and fundamentally dissimilar to the way that I respond to alcohol. Um, if I can't run for a while, am I sad? Sure, absolutely. I don't like it. But I have no problem taking a few days off from running.
Right.
I did not like to take a few days off from drinking. That's not the same thing.
Right.
And so I don't think that they are similar. Now, what is similar is something that's core about me, and that is that I am the kind of person who does not fundamentally understand moderation. I am not good at moderation. Um, in order to have a lifestyle that functions, I have to put a lot of daily effort in. I have to build routines in. And I am, I am not good at moderating anything. I will sit down and eat, an entire deep dish pizza, even if I'm not particularly hungry, unless I like pay attention and say like, hey, I'm not going to do that. I got a PhD, and I got a PhD without really a plan or knowing why I was going to get a PhD, other than, hey, my mom had one, and my uncle had one, and people tell me I'm good at math, so I should probably go do a PhD, right? Like, and I don't regret that or anything, um, but it tells you kind of where my mindset is, right? Like, I go all the way in everything, and I have since long before I was ever a drinker. Um, and so, for that, running is kind of the same way for me, right? I go all the way. And I haven't found where all the way is yet with running. But what I know is that when I run a lot, my life gets better, not worse. And whereas when I drank a lot, my life got worse, not better. So I'm, I just don't think of it as an addiction. It doesn't have the qualities of an addiction that make my life unmanageable. Um, my life is more manageable when I run rather than less. And I am good at my job when I run. I am good at my relationship when I run. I am good at my diet when I run. It makes me feel better about myself. And drinking was the opposite of all of those things. So I just don't connect with it being an addiction.
And I appreciate your answer and throughout this entire conversation, Eugene, about N equals one, like the tips and the ideas and the mantras and the things that you're discussing are about you.
Absolutely.
And I think oftentimes when people read posts on social media, right, there's no context to them. And so people assume must be everybody who does these things and that kind of stuff. But the way you talk about it in the form of N equals one, I really appreciate it, because I think it's important that people understand that this is what I'm doing for me, and it's what helps me. And if I do something else and it hurts me, it hurts me. It doesn't hurt everybody the same way. And I think that's really cool, the way you're able to explain whether it's, racing 100-mile, 200-mile, whether it's nutrition, whether it's moderation, it's an N equals one. And I really appreciate that about you. Thank you for that.
No, I appreciate you saying so. Thank you. I mean, what I like to say is, like, take what's good and leave what's bad, right? Anybody listening, if you connect with something I'm saying, that makes me very happy. If you don't, that's okay with me. It doesn't hurt me if you think that I'm completely wrong. It doesn't hurt me if you think that, hey, that works for him, but it ain't going to work for me, right? Like, fantastic. I'm me. This is what works for me. I think that some of the things I do are likely to work for a lot of other people, but if they don't, then they don't. That's no skin off my teeth.
Yeah, there's no one size fits all, as
Yeah.
we like to say. So I have another question for you. How did you get from triathlon and Ironman into ultra running? Because I know how my transition took place, but I'd like to hear how your transition from Ironman triathlon to ultra running took place.
Um, I mean, there kind of was no transition. I started them both kind of in parallel. So my first, like, sort of what I thought of as like a crown jewel of athletic achievement was going to be a full marathon, right? And so I went and I did the Marine Corps Marathon in 2015. Finished that, and I was like, all right, I've done a marathon. That's the biggest thing I can imagine, right? And so then I decided I wanted to try a triathlon because, I'm just kind of privileged when it comes to swimming. My parents taught me to swim before they taught me to walk. And so I literally, like, I can't remember learning to swim. It's just always something I've been able to do. And I'm not fast or anything, but, like, I'm very comfortable in the water. And so I was like, well, I can swim, I can ride a bike, and I can run. So why don't I try a triathlon? So I did an Olympic triathlon, and I had a lot of fun. And so then I signed up for a half Ironman, and that was the first time I got a coach and figured all this stuff out. And I did the Atlantic City half Ironman, and I had a lot of fun. But it wasn't something I could do with my wife because she doesn't like to swim. And so I just kind of, like, let that go a little bit at that point. And I was like, oh, maybe one day I'll come back to this. Maybe I won't. Then we moved out to Seattle. We did another couple of marathons. We did a bunch of half marathons. I love the half marathon. half marathon is such a great distance to
It's
run,
a
right?
great
You go,
distance.
you run for a couple of hours, you have pancakes, you take a nap, and you had a good day. And so then we moved out to Seattle and got into the trail running scene, and I got into ultra running because I started watching the Ginger Runner YouTube channel. And I have since met Ethan, and I am privileged now to kind of call him a friend. It's not like, we're not like super duper close, but like, we know each other, we say hi to each other, we chat on Instagram. And I've run his race every year since it's started. Ethan Newberry and Kim Tashima Newberry. They are fantastic people too. And talk about a great race. If you want to come run Tiger Claw, wow, will that kick your ass, but it is such a great race. And I started watching his movies, and I've just kind of always had this attitude of like, why not me, right? Why should I be someone who watches this stuff instead of someone who does this stuff? And so I just started going longer, and we did our first 50K in 2019. And then we just kind of started doing that for a while, and then I was like, oh, I want to go back and do an Ironman. And so then I went back and I did it. I was signed up for an Ironman in 2020. Didn't happen. Pushed it to 2021. Didn't happen. Pushed it to 2022. And finally got my Ironman in late 2022.
Which event did you do?
Ironman California, which is in Sacramento.
Yeah. We've got a couple of enjoying the journeys that we're doing for people who will be doing it later on in the year. And we'll probably end up traveling to Sacramento to get some footage of them racing. So I'm not going to taint the jury pool. So I want to hear your answer. Harder, 100-mile race or Ironman distance triathlon?
I mean, I don't think that there's any question. 100 miles is much, much harder than an Ironman. I feel like, so here's how I break it down in my head, and maybe it's because the Ironman in Sacramento is a little bit flat. But to me, an Ironman is a long day, not a hard day. A mountain ultra marathon is a hard day, and a long day. And so I think once you get to about 50 miles, especially if you have some vert and some technical ground to cover, the ultra marathon is harder than the Ironman. Yeah.
I've done 8 of each. So I've raced at different locations all across this country, and I would not disagree one iota with you. Running 100 miles is much harder than racing an Ironman distance triathlon.
Yeah, I would love to hear from someone who has done both and says that the Ironman is harder than the ultra marathon, than the 100 miles.
I mean, I think for me, right? So if you're going 20 hours to 30 hours, right? Just not even doing anything, sitting at home, going to work, right? That's a long ass day. You got to worry about food. You got to worry about rest. You got to do all these things. Now throw in running for that time frame. And then, like you said, if it's a mountain ultra, climbing, whatever it might be, 10,000 feet, 12,000 feet, maybe more. I mean, it is a very hard day out there. So I didn't want to taint the jury pool, but I'm in full agreement with you on that.
And I mean, and I am by no means diminishing the incredible effort it takes to do an Ironman, right? But like, I spent 8 months training for my Ironman, doing my 100-mile bike ride and a 5-mile run right after it, everything. I was so fit and so prepared, and I worked so hard, and I just had a good day, right? Was it hard? Yeah, it was hard. And I, again, wasn't fast. I finished my Ironman was 14 hours and 46 minutes. But I was never unhappy during the day, right? It was like, and for me, I will say, I don't think I have ever had a bad race day, even on days that were incredibly hard. And probably the hardest day I've ever had out there was the Gorge Waterfalls 100K, which, so 62 miles, 11,000 feet of gain, very technical footwork, and it was 34 degrees and pouring rain and hail all day. And I was out there for 17 hours. And it was unbelievably hard. And I had a great day. I had a great day. And I was and I would have missed the cutoffs if my wife hadn't been able to pace me for the last half marathon because it was so slow and so hard. Um, and, um, and I had a great day. And
That's
I
awesome.
had a great day because I went into it knowing it was going to be so hard. And that's for me the key. Suffering happens when my experience diverges from my expectation,
Yeah.
right? And so if I expect something to be the hardest thing I've ever done, and it's the hardest thing I've ever done, I'm going to have a great day doing it.
I love it. So I just asked you which was harder. So now I'm going to have you make another hard decision. You have a choice to do one of the three following things. Which one are you going to do? You get to play the piano all day. You have to bake and enjoy eating your sourdough bread, or you get to go out on a half marathon run, which you said you love the distance.
I mean, of those three, if I'm gonna do it, I'll probably take the run. Playing the piano all day is definitely a high quality, especially like right now with my finger injury and I can't do it quite as well. Um, I miss that a lot. If you go back in my Instagram feed and look at my reels, you'll see a lot of things of me improvising at the piano. And I truly love it. I go a little crazy when I can't play piano. Um, but uh, yeah, probably the half marathon. It's just such a great day going out and doing that.
Eugene, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get ready to jump into our rapid fire discussion questions. But before we get into that, I do want to wish you the best of luck. 1 month from today, Eugene's going to be taking on the Oregon 200, going 200 miles within 100 hours with plenty of climbing and plenty of dirt naps, I'm presuming, out there. So we're going to wish you the best of luck. We'll be cheering you on. And we actually have somebody who's watching us going by the moniker of Cobos 503. We'll be cheering you on as well as you tackle the Oregon 200.
Thank you so much. I feel like, it's going to be the hardest thing I've ever done, probably. Failure is an option. But I have always said too, like in this ultra running career, what I'm looking for is failure, right? I want to find the thing that
I think we lost his audio. Did we lose your audio?
device unexpectedly stopped, restarted. You hear?
Yep, we got you
Okay.
now.
Yep. Sorry about that. I was just saying, like, I want to find the thing where I'm fit, I'm prepared, I have a good day, and I still can't do it. And that tells me where my limit is. And maybe this will be it. Maybe it won't. I hope not. And maybe I'll have to do something harder. Maybe I'll come after Cocodona next. Who knows? That doesn't feel like my race. And man, am I impressed that you've done it. Um, but we'll see what's next.
I really love the attitude, man. Like, let's just go, take risks and bet on ourselves and figure out where the envelope can get to on the edge of the table. So, are you a fan of Oreos?
Yeah.
Do you like OG Oreos, the original style, double stuff, this cracker they call a Oreo thin, or this ding dong that they're referring to as Oreo cakesters?
Uh, so I will say my favorite is the golden double stuff. After that, the classic double stuff, and in a pinch, a regular Oreo.
In a pinch, I love it. Are you a fan of licorice?
Yes,
Red or black?
black.
Oh, so you like that anise flavor? You're all in on it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm big on astringent, difficult flavors. Yep.
Peeps. Are you a fan of Peeps?
I don't think I've had one in 30 years. I guess they're not bad as marshmallow goes. I do have a sweet tooth, but they wouldn't be my go-to.
You mentioned marshmallow. I wasn't going to ask about this, but you tickled my brain. S'mores. When you're going out when you're making a s'mores, are you going to burn the living daylights out of that marshmallow, or you just want it like golden brown on the
Oh
edges?
no, I'm gonna light it on fire.
Yes, exactly. I want that thing to look like a torch just in case
Yeah,
I can
absolutely,
go somewhere.
absolutely, yeah.
Candy corn. Is candy corn a real candy, or is it just earwax covered in sugar?
The candy corn is delicious and it's magnificent. And you know, if my wife could hear me right now, she would be throwing bladed objects at me. Um, but I actually buy candy corn simply because it's like the one candy that I can have to myself because I know she won't eat it.
You're the reason Brock's is still in business then.
Absolutely, I am. Yes, I love candy corn.
Creamy or crunchy, peanut butter or nut butter, depending on your allergies.
Crunchy every time.
How do you prepare a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Do you go peanut butter on one side, jelly on the other, smash them together? Or do you go peanut butter and jelly on the same slice of bread and then put the other slice over the top?
So I would do peanut butter and jelly on separate pieces of bread and then put them together. However, the correct answer is peanut butter and honey, and you
Oh,
mix the honey into the peanut butter on the bread.
fantastic. So now you've got your peanut butter and jelly sandwich on the plate in front of you. How do you cut it, if you cut it at all? Do you go two rectangles,
I
two
don't cut it.
triangles? No
I
cutting
don't
at
cut
all.
it. The whole thing's going down in 3 bites.
I love it. Red velvet cake. Is red velvet a real flavor, or is it just chocolate cake dressed up to go to the prom?
It's just chocolate cake dressed up to go to the prom. That said,
100%.
it's beautiful, but I'm a carrot cake guy.
Yes, my guy. So are you a raisin in your carrot cake kind of guy?
I like raisins, okay? You can put raisins in anything. Oatmeal raisin is better than a chocolate chip cookie, and I will die on that
Yes!
hill.
Dude, we have way more in common than anybody would have ever have guessed. So back to carrot cake for a minute, because this is also another contentious topic when it comes to carrot cake. Walnuts in the carrot cake or no walnuts?
Of course you put walnuts in a carrot cake.
And then the last one, because this happens, I've seen it. It's very rare, but it does happen. Pineapple chunks. I know they're no good on pizza, but what about pineapple chunks in the carrot cake?
No, so a carrot cake with pineapple chunks should properly be called a hummingbird cake, and it should be properly thrown into the trash.
Yeah, right along with the pizza, right next to it.
Exactly.
What's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
I'm not sure I have one specific flavor. It's really what, I look at what's on offer and I go with it. But I definitely like peanut butter ice cream, and I like plain old vanilla ice cream, and I like pralines.
I have to ask you this because I had not heard of this until last week. Strong Doc ATL Nelly said that she likes peanut butter ice cream, but actual peanut butter ice cream, not peanut butter swirls. So are you actual peanut butter ice cream or
Either way.
Yeah.
I mean, if you put peanut butter on an asphalt shingle, I will eat it.
Candy bar. What's your favorite candy bar?
Probably Snickers peanut butter.
Of course, yeah, that's a dumb question. Pumpkin spice or apple cider when fall hits?
Apple cider.
Savory or sweet is the only option you have for the rest of your life. What kind of food are you going to be eating?
I mean, if it's my only option, I'm going to be going savory simply because I get sick of sweet after a while.
Yeah.
But I would be a sad person without routine sweetness in my diet. Yeah.
Pop-Tarts, frosted or unfrosted?
I have not had a Pop-Tart in 30 years, and I don't intend to change that.
Last one for you. A tray of brownies just comes out of the oven. It's cooling for a little bit. Are you going to the corner edge, get a little bit of that crust, or are you going straight to the middle for the more ooey gooey section?
I'm going to the corner.
Nice. Are you also adding walnuts or any other type of nuts to the top of your brownies?
You could do walnuts. You could do pecans. Again, nuts go in everything. You could even go with hazelnuts. As long as Nutella is garbage that should be stricken from the earth. I despise it in every way, but it's because it's all fake, right? It's just oil and sugar and pretend cocoa powder and essence of hazelnut that doesn't taste very good. Real hazelnuts are really, really good. and chocolate hazelnut desserts are really, really good. And so, yeah, you put hazelnuts in a brownie and you're going to fight me for the pan.
When you go a la mode, are you going straight up vanilla, or is there a different flavor of ice cream you're putting on the brownie?
I would probably go straight vanilla. Yeah.
Are you a fan of coffee?
No, yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm from Seattle. I was bottle fed coffee.
Again, another dumb question. So I tell this to all of my guests who say they love coffee and they love brownies. Put the brownie in the bottom of a mug, top it with coffee ice cream, and then you'll have yourself a mocha as you're eating it. And then obviously if you eat it slow enough, which I don't know I've ever actually have it happen, the ice cream will melt into the brownie, and then you really got yourself like a mocha going on.
I mean, brownie on the bottom.
Yep.
Ice cream on the top, shot of espresso.
There you go.
The whole thing's an affogato, and it's just,
yep.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Eugene, thank you so much for joining us, man. This was a blast. Again, we're going to wish you all the positive vibes and good luck. We'll be tracking you starting on August 23rd at the Oregon 200. Thanks for joining us, man. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. This has been a blast. I'm stunned by how much we have in common. I'm sending you the emoji on Threads of the "Did we just become best friends?"
Yes.
So thanks so much. Have a great time. What's your next race?
So we are looking at Bountiful 6-hour race, which is in Hemet, California, and I believe that's in October. And then also the 70.3 at Indian Wells in December later on this year. Those are the two big events coming up.
All right. And then my last thing that I'm going to bring up is maybe think about, so the one thing that I really want to do in my life that I have not done in the athletic sense is I want to qualify for Hard Rock. So I think I'm going to do the Bear 100 next year. So take a look at that and see if you maybe want to come out to northern Utah, southern Idaho, and run 100 miles.
Let's do it, man. Like since I started the business, obviously it's really tough to get in like consistent training with the business and everything else. But after 3.5 years, the company I'm not saying we could put it on autopilot, but we definitely have opportunities to now go and do more things. And the idea is getting back to doing 100-mile next year. So I've got my pen. I'm writing down Bear 100 right now, and we'll take a look at that. And it'll be a blast to race alongside you.
That'd be awesome. Talk to you soon, man.
Have a good one.
You bet.
Thanks, everybody, for joining me. Coming up on Thursday, July 25th, Beyond the Finish Line with Joe Harden at 3 p.m. His guest will be Christina Harriman. So make sure to join us for that show right here on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and X. Thank you for joining us, and make sure when you listen to this show on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts, you subscribe, rate,